This is Movie and a Beer, a podcast based in Portland, Oregon, where you can share in our discussion about movies and what beers go best with them. From classic cinema to the latest blockbuster, we all can use a little help figuring out what beers to enjoy in the theater or at home. So listen in and explore with us the vast world of ales and lagers to pair up with your movie experience. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Dan Kapersky. This is Movie and a Beer. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing two movies that we watched here in my wonderful man cave. The first one being Jojo Rabbit, and the second one being a Netflix film titled Marriage Story. They both were very challenging in their own ways.
Correct.
The Jojo Rabbit was a kind of comical satire of World War II Nazi Germany, and had a lot of interesting dialogue and interaction between this young man who's growing up and figuring out his life in a very challenging environment. It does very much hit on all the major anti-Nazi, anti-fascists.
Yeah.
They were really evil. They did a lot of bad things to a lot of really good people, including his own family.
Yeah.
And the funny parts of that film really were reflected in his drawing. He created his own picture book.
So
describing
to help the Nazi Party identify Jews.
Yes, exactly.
With their large horns and scaled wings.
I like how you describe Nazi Germany as a challenging place.
I think it was more than challenging. I think it was probably deadly to people, but
you're probably fine if you're, a Nazi.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean your parents are fine.
No.
It just means you're fine. And we discovered that quickly in the film.
But we get a fun Hitler in Taika Waititi.
Yes, we do. So he plays the imaginary friend that helps him as the father who was not there, who he thinks is off fighting the war, and gives him advice. Sometimes not the best advice.
You know what he should do? Burn down the house and blame Winston Churchill.
Yeah. So we had chosen this film as a juxtaposition against 1917, which is a film we had saw a week prior to this. So we had a very heavy World War I, just very gritty, real life demonstration of what war is like in real time. This film takes place over a longer period of time, does have some good editing, really phenomenal acting by all the people involved.
Oh, God.
There is some amazing...
Sam Rockwell, especially. Good Lord.
Some subplots that were demonstrated and flushed out really well. Some surprise... I know your backstory and I know your situation, but I'm not going to tell on you because it'll then not only come back to me, you'll then tell on me because you know my secret. So it's like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, which is really cool. The one thing that I do have in the notes here is it's been called a hipster Nazi comedy, which is, kind of a weird thing to say, but that's, it started out, there have been other movies that have been farces and comedy about Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
There's been some really famous ones. Charlie Chaplin did the first one and portrayed Hitler in a very not positive way. He did it as a joke. And since then, there's been a number of, fairly well-received and popular films, and this follows suit with those.
My personal favorite being, it doesn't focus on Nazi Germany, but in Blazing Saddles, there's a scene where a guy dressed as Hitler is talking to a guy dressed as, Julius Caesar, just sitting at the lunch table, and the guy asks Caesar, so how's your movie going? It's terrible. They lose me after the bunker scene. Classic Mel Brooks.
Yeah. So in talking about types of comedy and history of comedy, this film follows a visual humor style and the writing style of, if you're a Monty Python fan, you'll easily be able to see kind of how they set scenes up, how the sight gags happen, and how that portrays the comedy that's happening in front of you. And while it's not intended to be comedy, it comes across that way very well. Yeah,
especially in the characterizations of the Nazi Party generals and people in charge are all very caricatures of people that I'm sure were actually in the Nazi Party army and within Germany.
So Randall, why do you say that you had not issues with the film, but it challenged you in some way?
I think the nature of Nazi films are always challenging to watch, and one that kind of makes them likable in some ways. Any film that makes Hitler kind of likable makes me cringe a little bit. Not to say
That's
that
fair.
their performances were bad. There was something I couldn't quite put my finger on, and this film just rubbed me the wrong way. Not to say it was a poorly made film. That's what I'd say.
That makes sense. I get that.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's a very difficult subject to treat lightly. But I mean, I guess, it's going to happen, right? And it's been happening. I think Charlie Chaplin's Hitler was actually really intense and really not funny and kind of scary at times, how accurate it was.
I don't remember a lot of it.
I only remember a few scenes where he's given some speeches and he really really dials it in.
Taika Waititi did that a little bit.
Yeah.
The director, Taika Waititi, plays the imaginary friend Hitler. There's a couple times where he's like being goofy, and then starts reciting stuff. I turn to the guys like, is that like from one of his speeches? Because that sounds like it's from one of his speeches.
Yeah, he definitely was
He took a turn.
channeling his inner Hitler.
Yeah, the
Which
speech
is crazy
pattern-
because I'm pretty sure he's part Jewish.
Yeah, the speech pattern.
Hitler? Yeah, he was.
and Taika.
The delivery, the speech pattern, the inflection of the voice, and how it did seem like he was very purposefully trying to reflect or demonstrate that this is in his mind, in the Jojo's mind, and probably other kids who have imaginary friends would think the same. It's really him. He wants to believe it's true.
Yeah.
So
This is exactly what he's like all the time, and we're going to be best friends.
yeah. So I think, we all three like the film for somewhat different reasons. I mean, I don't know, Randall's kind of on the fence.
I'm on the fence about this one.
My thumb is up, and his is like wavering between like the middle area. Like,
Yeah. It was a nice break from 1917, from the very serious portrayal of a horrible period in time in human history. So,
I think we all had to recover after that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised Jojo Rabbit got nominated for Best Picture. 1917 I get.
Mm-hmm.
But Jojo Rabbit, I'm not sure. Best Picture, really? Like,
I feel
one
like
of
a
the
lot
best films we've seen this year.
I feel like they take the acting, because the acting's the acting is phenomenal. Like, Scarlett Johansson's always great. Sam Rockwell knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah. They put Stephen Merchant and Rebel Wilson in the right roles, because if you put them in the wrong role, it's like, no, they were exactly where they need to be. And I think they took that and like, oh, I enjoyed watching this, and oh, this is cool, and I really like this, into like, well, and that's it's like the best picture. I think. Obviously I've never gotten a vote, otherwise there'd be a lot more different choices on the dang marquee.
Who is the director of this one again?
Taika Waititi.
Oh, right. Of course. We said that 5 times. What else has he done?
Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, did he? Really?
He did the movie What We Do in the Shadows.
That was great.
Vampire mockumentary.
That was great.
Which is now a FX show that I really enjoy.
But he's not in it, though, right?
No,
yeah.
Not this one. He also did, I think, Hunt for the Wilder People. What's the guy's name? I'm blanking on his name, but I think the story was like this guy just took his kids through the woods and just essentially kind of kidnapped them. But the story is kind of whimsical-ish. So
I'm glad he feels really at liberty to make light of really intense subjects like kidnapping and Nazis and Greek gods.
Norse gods.
Right.
If you do have an opportunity to see it, I think we can recommend seeing it.
I'd recommend it.
It was a good film. It's definitely not for children under a certain age, because they will not understand some of the humor.
Yeah.
They may get a little bit that it's a farce, but they may not. And so I think probably 12 to 15 is a good age range to be as a minimum to watch the film. It is geared towards kids in the way that the story is portrayed. They do show people getting shot, but it's not like big bloody gory scene like 1917 had. It's a good film though. I appreciated it. I enjoyed it for what it was and what it was providing, which is an interesting backdrop to a fun story about a young kid falling in love with his enemy and then embracing her at the end. So on to the second film, which is a Netflix exclusive called Marriage Story.
This is one of their ones they push to put in theaters. So they could get nominated.
Yeah.
There's a couple others I'm blanking on, but
I think that's a rule. It has to have a theatrical release for it to get nominated, which is silly.
right?
It seems weird.
It
It seems arcane.
System's run by arcane
Yeah.
people. They're like, it's not a thing.
All right. So the film is directed by Noah Baumbach and follows what I would quote a messy divorce of a New York power couple. They're not really a power couple, but they kind of get portrayed that way. Scarlett Johansson, Nicole, as her name is in the story, is an actress from Hollywood who moves out to New York to try something different and then ends up staying there. She does a production with Adam Driver's character, Charlie. They fall in love. Charlie gives up his impending fame somewhat to be with her instead of, in his own words, he could go out and get anybody he wanted, but he chose not to. He chose to be with her. And then it also centers around the interaction with Henry, who is played by, I don't know how to say this name, Azhy?
AZHY.
Ashy.
Listeners, message us and tell us how that's pronounced.
Ashy Robertson. I think he kind of stole the show. You have an authentic young 10-year-old who's trying to figure out what's going on with his parents, who gets spoiled rotten by the mom, and sometimes not intentionally. She just likes doing these things for the kid. And then this father who is super busy and very stressed out about work, about directing, money,
about having to get a lawyer.
About having to get a lawyer. So basically it starts out with them in therapy, and then she moves out to LA to do a pilot.
Yes,
for
TV
a
pilot.
TV show. They had a mutual agreement verbal agreement that she would come back after they're done. She takes the kid with them, and unbeknownst to him, she's basically starting the process of getting a divorce and serves him with the papers. Well, he gets served with the papers. But it follows the same kind of dialogue pattern and interaction that some of the classic divorce movies. I have down here in the notes like War of the Roses, Kramer versus Kramer. And there's been previous family-style dramas called Squid and the Whale, which I've heard of, but I have not seen.
I think it stars Jermaine Clement and somebody else. But I remember him, that was his first big thing after Fly the Conchords. And he was like, I want to be taken seriously as an actor.
Yeah. This film does have a great supporting cast.
Yeah, Ray Liotta, Laura Dern.
Yeah, Laura Dern was awesome. Alan Alda, who were like, he's still alive? Yeah, no, he's still...
I was a little surprised.
He's still making films, and he knows. He's just like this crotchety old lawyer who tells it like it is. And he tries to take advantage of the situation a little bit, which is kind of funny, and he doesn't do it in a very slick way.
Yeah.
He just starts telling stories, and it's like, oh yeah, it's $160 an hour. And he sits there and wants to tell stories, and it's like, no, let's talk about the case.
Yeah. It's shot like a play.
Yeah.
It's very much, it feels like you're watching a play. And that there's, the way the scenes are set and how people go in and out of the scenes. It's like how people leave on stage and come back. I don't know how to say it. It's just, it has a feel of a theatrical play.
Yeah.
Which is fitting since Charlie's play was going to Broadway, and it's very much like he's in the theater scene. That's what he does. He directs theater.
Yeah. And so the film really develops over the course of, it's like a 2-hour plus film.
It felt like it.
Unfortunately got very bored quickly, as it's a very slow grind of realization of Charlie that his life is being torn apart, and he is so introverted and into his world that he doesn't really see it until the lawyers start pointing out these things and his friends start pointing out these things, and he realizes that, I kind of need to get my shit together or I'm really going to get screwed here. And he sort of still does get screwed in the end, but at least they have an amicable situation.
Yeah.
And I think you had looked up, it's actually based off of a real story.
Yeah, Noah Baumbach's divorce from Jennifer Jason Leigh in the 90s. It's based on that because she went to go act and he's like, I want to do this. And then it's just a whole mess. Divorce is messy.
It is. And I kind of felt like it made her out to be the villain. Even though he had his faults and he recognized those faults in the end and then tried changing some of the behavior patterns that caused her to feel the way she felt and to get and want to leave, or to go do what she wanted to do versus doing what he wanted to do. which makes total sense.
I didn't like either one of them, honestly.
Yeah.
I didn't like either one of them, and yet I could relate to both of them in some ways.
I think I second that.
Yeah, it's some of the scenes felt a little forced. Like they I don't know. I just being a parent, I would think that I don't know. I didn't find the scenes believable. And both of those actors are parents too, which was shocking because I had to look that up, and I'm like, are these actors actual parents? Because no parents would act like this.
Adam Driver has a kid?
Adam Driver has a kid. Yeah, he keeps him super secret and locked down.
That's
and
smart.
I mean, yeah. And so, Noah Baumbach, he had a film called Frances Ha that I really liked. Came out in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was Adam Driver's, one of his first films, actually.
I forgot he was involved with that.
Yeah.
That was good.
It's black and white, and it was classic. It was like Woody Allen's Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
It felt a lot like that, like an homage to the city and relationships. And this felt like just a slow, boring Woody Allen movie. One that I wouldn't want to ever watch again.
It's like they put Woody Allen characters
Yeah.
into a scenario that was more grounded than a Woody Allen movie would have them.
I didn't like anybody in this movie. Even the kid. I didn't really care for the kid. He just seemed like somebody put some batteries in this guy. He's like moping around half the time. I just didn't buy him as, I don't know. I mean, he was good, but...
The scene that we all can agree on was the best one was when the like observer person showed up at Charlie's apartment, and the kid mentioned something about the knife trick. He's like, no, and she asked him like, what's the knife trick? Because she needs to know in case he's like, spinning a butterfly knife around this kid. He's got a little like X-Acto retractable blade. He's like, yeah, I just do this thing where I like pretend to cut my arm and I don't, and Nicole loves it. I don't do it for the kid, and then he accidentally slices his arm. He's like, no, it's fine. He slices it like it's bleeding profusely.
I think that scene was a metaphor for how I felt about this movie. Like I meant to accidentally, I meant to play this joke, cut my arm, and actually I sat through this movie for 2.5 hours and slowly bled out. I mean, how did this movie... I don't know. Some of the performances were really great. There were some scenes that I thought they did really well, but again, another one of those movies where I'm like, how did this thing get nominated for Best Picture?
Yeah. And I think it's the the acting combined. I did like that they, in the beginning, they each read like as part of their like counseling, like things they like about the other person, and the whole movie you keep seeing them do that stuff. He keeps like turning lights off, and she keeps like leaving cabinets open. And I also misspoke. I meant to refer to this point where he asked the observer, "Do you ever observe married couples?" And she answered seriously, "No." That was a joke.
That observer was so deadpan and so boring, and was such a perfect symbolic image.
Yeah,
of
that's
the
Martha
film.
Kelly. I think she did stand up. She's part of like the alt scene, where it's very like low key and a little Stephen Wright-ish. Wasn't stoked with the movie.
I'm ready to watch something enjoyable. I'm ready to watch something good.
A teaser. It may be a Blues Brothers movie.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll come up with something that's going to be a little bit more along our happy, jovial selves instead of a bunch of depressing films in a row.
We have there are a couple more Best Picture nomination pictures we need to watch, and some of them look pretty good.
Okay.
So
I think we have 3 kind of maybes almost down. Some thumbs down on this one.
I'm trying to think of who to recommend this movie to, and I guess like someone who's studying to be a director or like a cinematographer maybe.
I even then it was simple.
Yeah, it was.
There was nothing complex. There was nothing special about the cinematography. The writing to me was a little shallow.
It felt a little thin.
It kind of just jumped into the situation, and they backtell some of it as they go. But there's so much foreshadowing in the beginning of the film that okay, so you can cry on demand, and you can I just wasn't impressed. I don't think the actors had to stretch real far for it. It felt forced, as you said.
Yeah.
Some of it felt very forced.
If you like looking at Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It's different than a lot of the other films that are out right now. That's perhaps why it did get nominated.
That's fair.
But if you have Netflix and you're bored, try watching a little of it, but we don't necessarily want to sit through the whole thing.
Drink a lot of beer.
Yes.
Might help.
But what beer should we drink with this?
Yeah, so with that, we're going to go ahead and take our quick commercial break. If we had one, this is where it would go. All right, thank you for hanging out with us. This is the second part of our episode where we're going to discuss the the multiple beers.
The many beers.
That we tried with Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story. I keep wanting to say a Marriage Story, but there's no A at the beginning.
I do too.
It's just Marriage Story.
You go, Marriage Story?
Yeah. So
this is podcast land. Grammar doesn't exist.
Yeah, no grammar. Throw it out the window. We first started out with Jojo Rabbit, and we had the idea of picking some German beers.
Yeah.
So I went to a local bottle shop, specifically Hollywood Liquor, on my way home from the gym one afternoon, and I purchased 3 different kinds of German beers, which they had available. We had Riesdorf Kolsch, we had Weihenstephan Hefeweizen, and then we had Warsteiner Premium Dunkel, which is a Munich-style beer. All 3 of these beers, very good. I wasn't really sure. I didn't want to go for like a heavy, darker beer.
Right.
We had discussed briefly that it may be something light or something fun because we thought it was going to be a fun movie.
The tone in the trailer is, and that's a problem with trailers occasionally, is the trailer tone was like, oh, light, jovial little romp about Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
And he portrayed it probably accurately in some spots. My thought process was something a little lighter, something a little easy to sip while you're watching the fun hijinks.
And I think I agreed. While the film wasn't terribly long, it gave us an opportunity to try each of the beers. Some of us went back to the ones that we preferred, which would have been the Kolsch.
I really like the Kolsch.
Yeah, I mean, I love a Hefeweizen, but I think for this movie, I think the Kolsch, just as a style, worked a little bit better. Lighter, it's not a challenging flavor. You can sip it. It's a lower alcohol beer, so you don't have to worry about drinking too much. We did drink water in between most of them. I know I had the water right at hand most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
That would be our recommendation, is to find a lighter beer. If you can find a German style, I highly recommend doing a Kolsch. There are some not-so-good styles of Kolsch out there that are made in America. They're Kolsch styles. They're not actual Kolsch beers, because Kolsch can only come from Cologne, Germany, which is where they're magically from.
Kolsch was great. I like that one.
Kolsch style.
Yeah. It was really light, had a nice frothy white head. The nose gave probably a little bit of lemon, a little bit of grass.
I vaguely remember some lemon.
Kind of probably more yeasty notes than anything, because it does have a mild yeast front. The taste profile is really simple. It does have a little tart of a little hit up front from the hops, but it's not offensive. And it's just basically a light crackery beer, like a Pilsner, but it's made with different malt, so it is not a Pilsner, it is a Kolsch. Overall, I think we all really liked it. So it does typically keep its carbonation all the way through while you drink it. So you can sip it fast or sip it slow, and you should still have a little bit of agitation in the mouth when you drink it.
Nice. So Kolsch has to come from one particular area? Like
the Cologne region of Germany.
Okay, and is that like how champagne has to come from the one side?
Yep.
That's
correct.
cool.
Now, most people in America, most brewers in America, or most companies in America don't care, and they're going to call it Kolsch.
America.
But it's actually Kolsch style. Kolsch is, within government, German law, only can come from that area.
Okay. So if you got like a Kolsch in like another part of Germany, you knew it was from that.
It had to be, it's probably a bottle, you might find it in draft a little ways away from Cologne, but they don't distribute widely in draft. You're going to find it in bottles and cans, most likely in cans. You can get them imported here in the U.S. There's a number of major grocery store chains that carry them. So explore, try to find some German beers, and if you can't find a Kolsch, like I said, find another lighter German beer.
That's cool.
I would definitely recommend a German beer with it, since it is a fun German movie for me.
Yes.
It's not a German movie. It's an American-made romp through Nazi Germany.
Germany was vaguely involved. In name.
Yeah, right.
Only in name and reference, not really in reality.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, so the second film that we watched down here in the man cave was a wonderful film that we all got very depressed about, and we thought about drinking heavily.
Oh my God!
If I didn't have work the next day, I would have.
Yeah.
If it wasn't a Sunday night, I would have. Yeah.
We're like, we need shots of whiskey with this, like 1917.
Seriously.
It's like, you need a heavy drink to go with this
Yeah.
movie. We had talked about doing a stout. I was running around Costco that afternoon, and I was like, hey, they have an Irish sampler pack that has 3 really well-known and well-distributed Irish beers, to include Guinness Stout, Smithwicks Irish Red, Ale, and then Harps Lager. And my idea was to mix them mix the Guinness in both, because that's actually something
That's
they do. They can make a
right.
black and tan, or they can make
I forgot about those.
a
Yeah.
light red. I don't remember what that one's called, but they basically you're trying to bring the Guinness profile forward, because it is a fairly skinny beer, or
Yeah.
lighter beer. Even the nitro ones, and these were nitro cans, or nitro bottles that have the tabs in them. So it tasted really smooth. It was really good. Just before we watched the film, I was out and I decided to, hey, if we're gonna, I know the stout's probably the one we're gonna pick. Let's compare it to another stout. So I went and picked up a beer called Milk Stout Nitro. It's in a tall boy can, and it's by Left Hand Brewing out of Longmont, Colorado. This is an amazingly good beer. It goes down very smooth, like
Yeah, it
Guinness
did.
does on a nitro. It's just fuller bodied and bigger, which is what I had the idea of, mixing the different beers with the Guinness to make it a little fuller bodied. But inevitably, I think just the Guinness by itself, I think at least,
Like-
I don't know, Randall, was that your choice? The
left
Guinness?
hand, the Guinness? No, I don't think. Who chose the Guinness?
We
I-
both
I-
thought the Guinness was.
Like,
Oh.
like went with the movie.
Oh,
the
that one with the
best.
movie. Oh, I thought. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Although I
I
like
think yeah, I like the left hand a lot.
Left Hand
Which
was
is really good. I needed something to enjoy while watching this movie.
That's a good way.
And
that's a good way
I
to put
like
it.
Guinness. Like, I thought this, it was, a little more bitter, like this film. But I thought, I don't know, a double negative, it wouldn't have made this film right,
Right.
So, like, I went with
see
something
that.
that I knew was I didn't know the left hand was so good, but after tasting it, I was like, I'm not going to go back to what I know. I love Guinness. Guinness is great. Hands down. But yeah, this movie was too hard
That's actually
to
really.
watch.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Have something you really enjoyed. to go
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, something that's
think-
going to make you smile.
I think I'm really enjoying like matching the theme of like what I'm drinking with the movie.
Mm.
So everyone being like bitter. By the time I got to the Guinness, because I think it did the Left Hand and then the Smithwick. So I was like, oh hey, red ale, and then then the Guinness. I did the Guinness at some point, like when they were really starting to like go after each other. When like the good terms were gone, it was just like mean. I was like, sip. Yeah, this feels like when I'm watching it's in this glass. It feels right. Not to say Guinness is for fighting, but it just seemed the flavor seemed to match
Although
what was
many
on
of
the screen.
fights have broken out after a few pints of Guinness.
What did you call me, Seamus? Punch, 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 punch.
Yeah. So I totally agree with both points. I think, Randall, you probably have the better ideas to find something that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
A heavier, darker, it doesn't have to be darker, but a beer that you're really going to like, because this is a challenging, I'm air quoting myself.
Yeah.
A hard movie to watch if you yourself have experienced a divorce in your life as a child or a parent. Regardless of what type of couple it is, even if you're not married, and when you go through separation, you deal with these similar topics, and they're not pleasant. To me, I felt like, and I mentioned to the guys, this is like a train wreck, a really bad, slow train wreck that you're forced to stop and look at.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You're forced down the rabbit hole with these two characters, and for some people, it's not a pleasant experience. It brings back bad memories, or you have these experiences that, oh wow, it's reflected on the screen, and maybe that's why it got nominated, because it is somewhat real. But to me, it felt forced in that way.
Yeah.
They could have highlighted other characters, subplots, but they chose just to really focus on what the characters were fighting about, instead of what they did at the beginning, talk about the good things, but that didn't matter in the end.
Nah.
Yeah, I
Didn't
felt like
matter at
they kind of built it up at the beginning. They really cared about each other and all these positive, and then just dropped off a cliff, and they never got back to it until the end. And then even then, it was like an afterthought.
Yeah, so definitely
An
try
afterthought. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
try to find something you'll enjoy while you watch it, because this is definitely not a pleasant film.
yeah.
Yeah.
Got great reviews though. So what do we know?
Would definitely recommend the beers.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps not this movie.
A big thumbs up to Kolsch to go with, or a Kolsch style, or something similar to that, a lighter German beer for Jojo Rabbit. I think the Milk Stout or something that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah.
We ended up, I think, going with the Guinness simply because there was enough of that. We could just fall back on that and keep drinking it without. It's a lighter beer, so we felt like, we can drink a bunch of this because we need to drown our sorrows right now, or as Randall did, enjoy it. And be distracted with that enjoyment from this kind of crazy train wreck that's in front of you. So this brings us to the end of our episode. As always, the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts.
The hosts.
The hosts. If you do watch films and enjoy a beverage with them, please remember to drink lots of water.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
Yes. So we want to thank you all for listening today. So take care, everyone. This is Dan Kapersky. We have
Blake Hunt, expert in drinking all of Dan's beer.
Yes, all of my beer and our wonderful
And Randall.
co-host Randall. So thank you all much for listening and have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. This has been Movie and a Beer. Stay tuned for future episodes and features to be added to our website and podcast. And please remember to drink responsibly and hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.